Hi there, folks. Welcome back to the WP-Tonic Roundtable Show. It's episode 237. We've got a nice sized panel here. We're going to have hopefully a couple other additional people joining us during the discussion. So if you hear some new voices, we'll introduce them to you, but don't be surprised. I'm going to just go with what order I see on my screen and let my panelists introduce themselves, and I'm going to let Sally do the honours to be the first person to do that. Off you go, Sally.
Good morning, Jonathan. My name is Sally Getch. I am the organizer of the East Bay WordPress meetup, and I have a business called WP Fangirl, and I have actually managed to publish 2 blog posts in 2 days, which might be a record.
That's a fair bit of work, depending on how large. Would like to.
Well, the first one was 2,600 words. The second one is somewhere closer to 1,000, which for me is a short article.
Right. So, my beloved co-host Kim would like to introduce yourself.
Absolutely. I'm Kim Shivler, and I'm a business and technology instructor. I'm currently in Las Vegas. I'll be speaking at WordCamp Las Vegas this weekend. So if anybody is around, come check us out.
Baby, you in Las Vegas.
That's right.
Oh, there you go. And we got a great guest panelist, Amanda McCoy. Would you like to introduce yourself, Amanda?
Sure. So I'm Amanda McCoy, obviously. I'm a freelance graphic designer that has turned to making websites in the last few years. And I did a class at the Sacramento WordPress camp.
Yes, it was great. And you're a bit of a trooper because you've been traveling. You've been traveling for 24 hours before you came on this panel, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm sorry if I'm a little incoherent. It's just because I'm not sure what time it is, and I don't know where I am.
Oh, I'm like that anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Don't be too alarmed, because I'm like that all the time. So, folks, we've got a nice tight panel here. We're going to go straight in the news session. Like I say, hopefully some of the other panel are going to be joining us during the show. And I'm going to start with a tavern story, Ginnensburg, whatever it's called. Engineer. Yeah. Mattis Ventura, is it? Yeah. Unpacks the vision for Blocks, front-end editing and future WordPress themes. Pretty long title, but I think I managed it. Anybody wants to start with that first?
So I had read Matthias's article when it came out, and I was curious about why you picked the tavern article instead of the original, although I'm beginning to suspect it may have something to do with the comments, because the
no, it hasn't, Sally. It's got nothing at all. It's just time, basically. So I'm just lazy, and it's just easier to go to the tavern to pick these stories up.
Yes, well, I get this little note, from the managewp.org every day.
You got all these feeds coming in, though. I think I got that from WP Managed as well. Yeah.
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 But yeah, so I had read the original article, which is a nice piece about sort of at least why what he thinks is going on here and where it's leading, and it was very kind of upbeat and optimistic in terms of here. This is going to give you tools as a developer, and it's going to make it. They want to work on making it easy to discover what types of content you can add and move on to, a better overall experience for WordPress, which is, something that WordPress does need to aim at. I don't think there's anybody who actually likes the current visual editor. But if you do read the comments in the Tavern article, you see kind of a continuing controversy, and one of the commenters said, "I hope no WordPress user read the post, because basically it says WordPress users are technological idiots that cannot learn everything. Therefore, we should aim for their limited technical IQ level." I didn't get that impression from it, but yes, it also said, "I don't remember."
He wants to reread the article, doesn't he?
Yes.
Ugh.
It says, I do not remember when was the last time I worked for someone that technologically challenged. Well, I do.
I do.
I
I do.
and which has nothing to do with anybody's IQ, but I do have a lot of clients who are not not very
Can I say
comfortable
something?
with
I'm sorry to
technology.
interrupt. I don't know who left that comment off Huntington. Can I just say something direct to you? You're an idiot. You really are. You're a total freaking idiot. And you know, to paste that on the forum on the tavern, you truly are an idiot.
Yes,
I just think you
yeah.
need to know that. Get some feedback because you've got some problems. You are a total idiot.
Well, he certainly has an attitude problem for which there may be some level of justification somewhere. I don't know this person, but which I don't think contributes very well to actually achieving anything useful.
No. Kim, do you want to pass anything about the article?
No, I just, I think it just brought up again, though, the concern some people are having as far as the developers of plugins, et cetera, on how they're going to be able to work with this in the short time frame when some decisions like what frameworks they're using and all haven't even been made. It's just, stuff we've talked about before. I don't know that that it changes anything, but it's the same questions and issues people talk about.
Yeah, I just want to give some feedback to move the conversation forward, and I'll go to Amanda and see if she's got any words of wisdom. But basically, it was a nice article. I think the concerns about from certain developers are totally justified. This does seem to be moving at lightning speed. In some ways, I'm a little bit bored to keep bringing it up every week, but it dominates WordPress news to such an extent almost every week that I feel that I am forced to bring it up because we covered news at the beginning of this podcast. But I think those worries and concerns in a way are justified because I think in some ways it slowed down is the wrong word, really. It just needs a bit more open discussion and a little bit more reassurance that some of the fears from the developer community in WordPress are being heard, and it's not going to end up in a little bit of a mess, which we all hope that won't be the circumstance. We hope it's going to be a great success. And I also feel one of the things the article did do was also really clarify what the scope of this is, and what are some of the outcomes that the development group involved in this want to achieve. So I think as an article, that was the only thing it kind of clarified to me. What did you think, Amanda?
Well, I'm not that familiar with the whole technical side, but I certainly think that having making it easier to edit things would be really useful for my clients who are less tech savvy. It's always a kind of a long ramp to get them to a place where they can do the edits that they need to do on their site. My sort of concern as a designer is that I want to be able to set up something that is relatively foolproof in terms of them really messing up the design. It's set up in a certain way. You want to maintain a certain consistency for a certain professional look. And I just want to know that I can set up something that will be a little bit client-proof on that end.
Yeah, you're bound, and that is a totally legitimate view, Amanda, and that's another area that's not been totally clarified. Are you going to have a system where you can give a certain degree, because that's one of the great things with Beaver Builder, because you can actually give You can lock it down through modules, give certain levels of customization, and exclude other levels of customization. I'm not probably explaining that very clearly. That's another totally legitimate concern. So I think there are some legitimate concerns. What gets me going is on a lot of these, especially on the tavern, is when you read some of the comments, is the juvenile attitude of some people rather than bringing up legitimate concerns. That's what gets me going. So I don't tend to read them, Sally, because I just can't be bothered, which is a shame because the comments have got a lot of good stuff, but maybe they should prune and edit a little bit more vigorously. That's what. Just giving a little hint there, tavern team. You do a great job. I nick all your stories. I think we'll go on to the next one. I'd love to see what feedback he's got on this next thing I managed to get up. And this is from a site called Couple, but it's from a couple. I'm going to butcher this. I need help.
It's as far as I know, and I'm not completely confident. Ahmad Awais and his wife, Maida Batul.
Thank you so much for that, Sally.
And Ahmad is deeply involved in the Gutenberg
just a little bit
project.
I have to get him. I have to try and get him on the show when I.
Yeah, that might be a good idea. I mean, the time zone is probably insane, but
yeah, that's the problem, isn't it?
He's written quite a lot about it, and if you've read anything he's written, he is extremely pro React, and it's a nice interview where he talks about.
I never got that impression from this interview at all. Did you?
And so he's gone to talk to the React team at Facebook about how they envision it progressing and how people can use it and so on and so forth, and all of this sounds very good, except as I commented on the post, it's not the technical side of React. I don't think that anybody was ever really concerned with. It's the licensing thing, and apparently, he said it was the development team that persuaded persuaded Facebook to change the license so that it was compatible with GPL, and therefore it would be all right for WordPress to use it, but it's still not their final. They're not the ones who make the final decision. I think they could see, look, if WordPress backs off React, there will be a lot fewer people who want to use React, and that's going to be a bad thing. But at the same time, there is still not anything to prevent Facebook changing the license back, unless there's something I'm not aware of that says, oh, once you get this license, you've got it forever. Adam, welcome.
Oh yeah, so Adam from WP Crafters joined us. So if you hear his voice, you know who it is.
Is this working? This is working.
It's working. It's working.
Yeah.
You're with us, Adam. Thanks for joining us.
So it's it was interesting for me to read this. I'm not a JavaScript developer, so I don't have personal opinions on that aspect of React, but yeah, I still feel kind of hesitant, and it doesn't have to do with these people or with the actual framework itself. I don't trust Facebook. I really don't trust Facebook. I don't use Facebook.
Well, I don't trust Facebook, but I use Facebook. Sally. But I totally agree with you on the trust element. That I think fundamentally that is one of the key factors. It's Facebook, and their track record when it comes to this is abysmal, to say the least. And as a business partner, their track record is abysmal. I personally, unless I do business with them, I would prefer not to, but I do business with them. I give them a fair whack of money every month. So it is, but that is the problem. Like I say, I'm not, I dabbled with JavaScript many years ago, and I do the odd thing with jQuery, but I couldn't in any shape or form tell you what is the best library. The only comment I would say on the piece, which is substantial, it was a bit of a love-in to some extent, but the other idea that it should be kind of JavaScript neutral and you should be allowed to use, I think, doesn't sound a great idea to me. I think you really have to choose one.
I love it in theory, but from what Joost said in his article and other things, in practice, it wouldn't actually work very well.
I wouldn't have thought so. I think it would cause enormous confusion. But that, I haven't got the technical chops to make a comment on it. Adam, did you have time to read that at all? It's a bit of a lengthy piece. We got any comments on that? We're talking about this.
I did not. I will say that with that, does it reveal why they changed the license? Was it because of WordPress? Because why else would they have done it? The way.
Not really, but I think it's pretty obvious. They want it. They want the biggest developer. The biggest group of developers they can attract to utilize the library. So I would have thought that's why. But it's Facebook, isn't it, Adam? Isn't it?
Yeah. Well, they had an opportunity, right, to be on 28% of the websites to have their technology on there. So I mean, there definitely is, I guess, an incentive there in the sense that they would have had WordPress giving back to make it even better, and they would benefit from it. But there's always been concerns with Facebook. They got all your data. They got all my data. It's okay. I'm past that. Hackers all over the world have all our data anyway with the Equifax hack. So there's not much that's not already out there, unfortunately.
Yeah. Before we leave this, Amanda, got any thoughts at all? I suppose it's really outside your realm of interest, really, though, isn't it?
Yeah, honestly, it is outside my realm of interest or of expertise, and I just want it to work and work really well.
Like, I think about 99%.
Right, shouldn't be too much to ask, right?
Yeah, right.
See, but on the other hand, I don't want to become one of these trolls on the forum or the tavern. But this is, to me, this was another sign of not enough discussion before diving in a way. I think choosing the right library and discussing, there's, I think Morton said it in one of the previous discussions on this topic when he joined us, is that it was chosen because the lead developers, that's the library that they utilized. So they wanted to keep using it, which is a perfectly legitimate reason. But it also needed a little bit more discussion, did it? And that's what led to this blowing up, because I at the initial stage I would have had some great concerns about using any technology from Facebook in an open source project because of their track record on this particular area, which is basically abysmal, truly abysmal. So I think that's enough said on it. On to the next one. I think I got it from somewhere in the ether, but it's on the word fence. Updates to cybersecurity. WordPress, that what we're cooking in the lab today, blah, blah, blah. Postman SMTP plugin with unpatched vulnerability removed from directory. And we had it on some of the sites that we support, so we had to act a little bit QET. So what did the panel think of this one?
I wish, I know there's no practical way of doing this, but, when Apple came out with their iPhones and they came out with their App Store and there's all these complaints that it's this gated wall and all of that kind of stuff. the benefit of that is you have Apple making sure that the apps are safe, that are going to go through their store, through their property, and onto their products. And I kind of wish that, see, if when these bad things happen with plugins, it reflects very bad on WordPress itself, because most people don't, the average user doesn't make the disconnection that this is not from WordPress. They just know, they go to WordPress, they click the name, and they're using it. And why aren't there these protections in place? So I kind of wish WordPress itself would allocate some funds and say, you know, we need to protect the brand. Let's allocate some resources to make sure we are vigilant when it comes to security for our users. Obviously, it's an open source project, and we're talking about money, but it negatively affects WordPress.com as well. You know, they've got to protect the brand, I would think. I kind of wish there was more of a vigilance with these things to catch them quicker, or some kind of resources allocated to auditing updates to plugins, code, or some kind of automated scanning systems developed to automatically scan the code in these plugins. Something really should be done so that things don't last a week with this vulnerability like this, you know. It's just, I just don't want to see the WordPress brand harmed when things like this happen. And this is actually a continuation of a month ago, where people were buying plugins.
Just
stop me there.
Just stop there. I think we've got to make it very clear here, Adam. What we discussed and what you're discussing was somebody that actually bought plugins.
True.
And
Yes, that's different.
Installed. Not very technically well, thank God, installed code that would,
yes,
you know, this scenario is somebody that they have it was a strange article. I might not have read it correctly. I'm sure Sandy will put me right if I haven't. Is that the developers seem to have kind of disappeared a little bit. He's not responding. But on the other hand, there's loads of plugins in the depository that developers have disappeared, but they seem to have acted very quickly on this one around it. So I was a little puzzled by why they acted so quickly, or on why, you know, there's loads of developers that don't communicate that quickly, is there?
Right.
But,
well, I think that if they saw that it was vulnerable and the developer wasn't patching it, they'd better take it out of the repository.
yeah.
Right. But yeah, I mean, I think we have sort of two different issues here. There are people who review the plugins before they get put up there,
but not the updates and ongoing.
Right. But it's a small team, and they may, they may miss things. And and they don't review the updates, which is how we got the other problem. Now, I don't know whether Apple reviews every single update that's made to every app, or whether it's just the process of getting into the App Store in the first place. But I presume that the people who are doing the reviewing for Apple are being paid for it, and that's their job, and therefore they can devote more time to it. There's an issue with anything that depends on volunteers. Is you have to find the people who are able to devote the time, and it can be an issue.
I got an idea here. I want to throw to the panel. Well, I agree with Adam, what he was saying. I think something's got to be done with this situation, because it's going to be ongoing, and it will damage WordPress and the brand, as Adam said. This is my idea. I think you should have a secondary list of what is called, I don't know what wording you would use, but they would be premier plugins, which if you want to be part of that list, you have to pay as a plugin developer. You have to pay WordPress. You will be charged a fee, but the reason why you, as a developer, you would pay for that fee is that you would get a mark, a token, something you can bun on your marketing. Use Amanda's services to do a nice, icon. But says that you've been approved and you're in the Premier WordPress depository, and you have strict guidelines that to keep that mark of superiority, whatever you want to call it. You have to abide by a set of.
No one will trust it if you have to pay for it. They'll assume that you are achieving it through money rather than through passing the standards.
Do you honestly feel that the WordPress community is that paranoid then, Sally?
Paranoid hell! Do you know how much it pissed people off about the hosting reviews and even the suggestion that might be that people got on the WordPress recommended hosting because of the amount of support they provided for WordCamps or other financial incentives?
Yeah,
but there's a difference. There's a difference, though, in having to pay for a technical scan to make something approved, like the Good Housekeeping seal of approval, right? Those are paid for, people. That's not free. Good Housekeeping doesn't just go out and go, oh, we liked this and we go through it. Those are paid for, but you still have to. You pay for it and you have it tested. They run it through their program. They say, yes, it worked or it didn't. I think
if you phrase it as there's an application fee to be considered for the program, that's one thing versus, here, hand over some money and we'll give you the verified whatever.
Agreed.
Don't get me wrong, Sally. I totally agree with your comments about how the theme thing was handled. I thought it was handled appallingly myself. And if I was a theme developer, I would be really pissed off with that whole. And it's still not clear how it's all organised and that. I think that's more down to the internal systems, and if you had a really clear, even on the themes, that there would be a separate list of themes that would be whatever title they were given, and you had to go through application, a higher bar to get your theme into that section, and there would be an application fee, and you would have to have these set signposts, or you would have to do these set things and agree to these updates to your theme. What do you think, Adam, or am I dribbling?
Well, I think that some thought needs to be invested in this because it's just going to end up getting worse. So there's lots of options. And, WordPress, the parent company, is making a crap ton of money. They can carve out a little sliver to protect the WordPress brand. And, it's funny. WordPress is really proactive. I think iTheme Security does a great job. They've got they're really solid security plugins. But I think the fact that we have to install a security, like a perfect example, and I hate to keep going back to this, and hopefully people don't get mad at me. I own a Mac computer. I don't have a security software on it. I've had it for 15 years. I'm pushing the level. I'm pushing it on my Mac. I'm an active, very involved in my Mac user. I do stuff, all right. You wouldn't dare think of running a PC without like 15 security plugins. You need firewalls, antivirus, and all that, and the antivirus gets broken. All I'm saying is I wish WordPress was like a Mac where I didn't have to worry about security, because the problem is new users, they're not worried about security. It's not even on their radar. It should just kind of be done for them. I'm not talking about keeping WordPress is secure. I'm talking about being proactive to protect it from other people trying to harm it. That's what I'm talking about. It kind of stinks that you have to go get WordFence or you have to go get iTheme Security when some of these basic things, because you read this article, right? WordFence is saying this happened, blah, 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 excess, what was it, security vulnerability, but we got you covered from day one. Why can't WordPress have everyone covered from day one on some of these basic things that they know are out there? Or is that, I just think it makes sense.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I've got to say, this is a typical WordFence post, you know.
Yes,
and,
I've read them.
And they're probably, because what I'm about to say, they're probably never going to become a sponsor. And I need to do, oh, thanks for that. I'll just be reminded, I need to talk about my sponsor. This is a typical WordFence, and, you know, I've got no problem with their plugin. Well, I do actually. I do have some problems with their plugin, but I have a bigger problem with the tone of their articles, and I understand it's clickbait and we're in a competitive world, but they're notorious, you know, and I've had clients ringing me up, you know, because they've read one of the WordFence articles and they're all kind of worked up, and I've had to calm some clients down because of these people, these clowns and their articles. You need to calm down, folks, and think of the WordPress community a bit rather than just keep plugging these posts you do. The other thing is, yeah, I understand where you're coming from, Adam, but I don't think I think you could do a lot better job, but I think a certain awareness, especially if it's a business website, you're making money. I think you got to understand a bit about the web, and you can never be totally secure. It's just you raised, because it's linked to usability, isn't it? You know, it's always the higher the security, the less usable the site is. What I mean, you know, you have more steps to log in and blah blah blah. So there's always a balance there. I don't know if Amanda wants to say anything about this. Do you want to say anything about this? You're sitting there very quietly listening what's going on.
You know, I'm always kind of entertained by their posts. You know, I read them and it's like, oh, wow, oh my God, and then but they've got me covered. You know, they've got me covered. So, you know, I think they're kind of entertaining in a certain way. I can see you have an issue here with with money. It's like what I like about them is their job is just security, and you know, if we can believe their posts, they're pretty on it. You know, they're doing their job and they're always there and they're always working on stuff. So.
Yeah, but don't you think that sometimes they go over a little? You know, you're totally welcome to disagree with me, Amanda.
Right.
It's only my opinion. But don't you think that some of the posts that they have knocked out are a little bit, you know, there to get people to buy their plugin and, you know?
Well, everybody in the security business basically sells by trying to scare you.
Yeah.
And it's not that there's nothing to be afraid of, but, you know, Adam, I have a PC and all I run on it is, in fact, I have two PCs. All I run on them is the basic Windows Defender software, and I don't have any problems with viruses because I don't do stupid things.
Like use Facebook?
Well, yeah, Facebook is excessively stupid, but like, you know, click on those obviously infected links from people's, you know, Yahoo accounts and, you know, other kinds of stupidity. And, you know, I don't think it's too much to ask people to undertake reasonable precautions with their computers and with their websites. I just wrote, you know, that 2,600 word article I just wrote is basically about, you know, why having a website is like having a car. And if you think of, you know, all of the kinds of things you have to do to make sure that your car is okay, and you can drive safely, and you know that you have to learn how to drive it, and then you have to learn, you know, there's a 614-page manual for my car. You know, it's not like I have read the whole thing, but yeah, you know, I'm driving down the freeway and my tire pressure light goes on. And since, you know, my previous car was from 1999, I had never seen a tire pressure light. I have no idea what's going on in my car. Yeah. I'm freaked out because I'm, you know, moving at 75 miles an hour, you know, and I have to go back and look through the manual to find out what this light means, and it's on page 100 and God knows what, and, figure it out, and, go take the car to the tire place and have them check the pressure and readjust the little thing so it stops beeping at me. And, people take having to do that stuff for granted, even though it actually requires a lot of time, energy, and money to put it in. And I think folks have gotten really lazy about anything technical.
Right. Well, and even with the Mac, I'm a Mac person too, and an iPhone user. But, now we're expanding beyond just security of the operating system. If you're online, if you're hooked up to a router, people hack these lovely little cameras on Macs just as much as they do on PCs. I mean, when I'm running around my room, that's there so that I'm not hacked. And same with your phone, So I think we're moving beyond just, I agree with your point. We need to, that I think that they should do something to protect the brand. But I think that we're expanding as we expand through the Internet of Things, et cetera. We have more security concerns we're going to have to keep considering.
Yeah, I think we go for a break, folks. But before that, I want to quickly talk about our great sponsor of this show, and that's Intelligence WP. And what is Intelligence WP? You are wondering. Well, it's a great plugin that allows you to deal with Google Analytics, that great thing that you set up once and then you probably never go back to it. And when you do, you have no idea what you're looking for and how to set it up. The great people from Intelligence WP have got a great WordPress plugin and also some other services that works with the plugin will make your Google Analytic data worthwhile to look at, and you will understand it. So go to Intelligence WP and find some more about this great plugin, which is free and not crippled. Like I say, folks, we'll go for our break. We're coming back, and actually Amanda will probably be able to say something in our main topic. We'll be back in a minute, folks. We're coming back, folks. We got I've really enjoyed the discussion. Actually, we've got a great panel this morning. Unlike last week, where I just left it to my co-host, and she had to deal with, I think, 8 panelists, and I just threw it into it. But we're going to go on to our main topic, which is about color palettes, design, nice interface stuff. So we're off we go, and I think I'm going to let Amanda start off with this. So choosing the right color palette, the right colors, to me, it's something that people tend not to think of, do they? But it's something pretty crucial also, Amanda. Would you like to start off the conversation?
Sure. I mean...
Come on, Amanda, be more enthusiastic. But I know you've been trying to...
I'm a New Englander. We don't really do this stuff. We're kind of the rest of you, we would say we're kind of shut down. Anyway, I really love color. Color is hugely important because it's it's probably the quickest way you can get into emotional touch with somebody. I mean, colors always elicit some kind of emotional response, and so that's really good for your website, for engaging people with your website. And one of the things about it is that it takes a lot more time and a lot more thought than people realize. So I don't know, it's just really important to actually devote some time and effort to it. I guess the other thing about it is that it's like everything else, keep it simple. It's really easy to get incredibly bogged down in a whole lot of stuff, and simple is good. One color is just fine.
Got any before opening out to other panel, you got any kind of tips and tricks or insights about how you choose the right color palette when you're developing your website?
Well, I've got some training courses. I'm not promoting the training courses because I'll just tell you kind of the content when I'm talking about color in some of my training courses. Actually, don't you hate when you're looking at someone's website and you can immediately tell what theme they're using? And that really just shows that they didn't put the extra effort into making it really stand out. And it usually comes down to fonts and colors, right? Like I could spot a Divi website a mile away. You could actually tell, usually because of the font, but also because the color of the font and the way the interaction is, because people don't take those extra steps that themes give you or your page builder gives you to choose colors. I like to do one of two things. One is a 2-color option or a 3-color option. And I call it a 60-40 or a 60-30-10. So the 60-40 is you've got your primary color and you've got your accent color. So you want to use your primary color about 60% of the time, and then 40% of the time you'll use your accent color. Actually, more like 30% of the time. But I prefer this 60-30-10. 60 is your primary, 30% of the time you're using your accent, and 10% of the time, I might have coined this, I call it a pop color, and that's a color that stands out from all the others, and this is typically a color you're going to use in buttons or where you want people's eyes to go to. There's a ton of excellent resources on the internet for color palettes, and you can start experimenting with different color palettes. So you could actually just Google color palettes. I think one of them's called Colors, but there's 2 O's in it, so it's like Colors. That's a great site for color palettes. But you know what? I like to see what other people are doing, and so if you use the Chrome web browser, there's all these amazing extensions, and one of them is, I think it's Colorzilla. So you can go to just Google Chrome Colorzilla, and what it is, it's a color picking tool that you can just grab any color from any website that you're at, and you can start experimenting with colors to try to discover what you like and how you can implement that on your site. And so I find those are some really good basic principles to stick to.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic, Adam. Amanda, I think I don't know what you think, pass comment on Adam's comments there, but also colour and layout are quite closely linked, aren't they, Amanda? So what do you feel about that and about what Adam's just said?
The main thing for me is that it really depends on what your website is and who your client is. I think that it's very hard to talk about color in the abstract. It has to have a very close link to to who the client is and to what you're trying to get across and the feeling you're trying to get across. I tend to separate out layout and color. I'll do layout first, and then I will, part of what I'll figure out after that is like, okay, what color do I need in order to make this layout more appealing and more comprehensible? To make it clear, what's most important, what's less important. Using color in a very functional sort of way. So yeah, there are a lot of color apps on the web, and a lot of them are really fun. But it's not where I go first usually, because I find that they're too abstract, and I need to start with the specifics of the client that I'm working with.
Yeah,
you can entertain yourself for hours and not necessarily get closer to your goal.
That's so true, Sally. The other thing you've got to keep in mind is colour blindness, and it affects a lot of the male population, doesn't it, Amanda? Especially when it's e-commerce or something you're trying and you're using colour, as Adam says, you've got to also realise that a large proportion of the population have a certain level of colour blindness.
Right. But you know what? You're really whenever you deal with color, you're also very much dealing with value. And as long as you get enough value difference between your colors, you're going to be okay. And a lot of the for example, a red-green color blindness, right? If you have red and greens that are really close to the same value, for somebody who's colorblind, that's going to be impossible to see. But it's also going to be really hard to look at anyway, because you get that red-green vibration that gets set up.
Yeah, I use them all the time, Amanda.
Yeah. Anyway, so you should definitely keep that in mind and definitely test. But, as long as you've got a good value set up, you're going to be okay, I think.
Yeah, well, there's that, the old cheat, if you look at it in grayscale, can you still tell the difference between everything you need to still tell the difference between?
You would never think that I like grayscale by the WP-Tonic website, would you, folks? But I just wanted something different. And when I actually went to graphic school, that, like you say, folks, do everything in kind of monotone, and then it was kind of pushed into your brain that you should do that, really. But I always like it's fun, really. But like you say, Sally, you could waste so much time. The other thing, Amanda, is certain colours and certain colour palettes are in vogue at certain times, aren't they?
Right.
Do you do any kind of, after you worked out who the client's target audience is and the other things we've quickly discussed, is that part of your consideration as well?
Usually it's not. I think it really depends. I mean, it depends on what you mean by like what's in vogue. It's like, okay, is it like that blue-green color that you see on all tech sites now, And so for example, if I was going to do that kind of tech site, right, I would probably go and do a survey of other sites, and I would, choose a color that was not the same as all of theirs. The other thing, there are people who do color.
It's bootstrap blue is what you're saying.
Yeah, right. So there are people who do color forecasts. This is more for the sort of, fashion design and interior design stuff. And so there's actually a lot of very detailed stuff about, what colors are going to be coming up as, new and fresh and in vogue. And I suppose if I was doing, some kind of a furniture or interior design site, that might be important, but mostly I just ignore that.
So, I think we covered a couple of sites that could help with this. Have the panel got any other sites, like Adam gave a couple, and a couple of quick tools that can help people with choosing colour and working with colour? Silence. Come on, folks, you must have some.
I have a whole stack of bookmarks on things like, color and typography and this and that, but none of them are immediately popping to mind. So I'll give you a link to the bookmarks for the show notes.
I'll throw it to Adam, because also you've covered the use of fonts, haven't you? So would you like to, I'd like to broaden out the discussion, because there's only so much we can talk about, colour. Yeah, to a certain degree. What about fonts as well? What's your tips on those, Adam?
Ironically, they're almost identical, because the same ratios apply. Well, actually, it's a little more weighted towards your main body font, because if you have an article, you've got headlines and you've got majority of it's the body of what you're writing. So, but it's very similar in having a 2 font or a 3 font type of scenario, and using the same tools to identify fonts. And there's also websites that will help you pair fonts. So I typically like my headlines and my menu to have the same font, and I just use them there. And they might have a different weight than the body font. And the body font will be a separate font, but then if you want to spruce it up a little bit, you kind of have that 10% of the time you use it font where it might be dramatically different. Like you see this a lot with feminine websites, say like yoga websites or women that are coaches, where they'll have a cursive font be that 10% font, where they'll put that above a headline or some non-typical thing like that to make what we're talking about. Let me just back this all up, and I should have said this first. It comes back to branding, having a strong brand. And it's okay if you want a website and a business, but you're not so concerned on having a really strong brand image. But if you notice, all strong brands have distinct colors, and they use specific fonts. So if I was to say, what color does YouTube use? Everyone's going to shout red. What color does Dropbox use? Everyone's going to say that glowing blue, because people identify colors with brands and also typography with brands. An example of that cursive thing I was talking about, if you go to a website, the membership guys, I think you might have probably interviewed them a couple times.
Yeah, once.
Yeah.
Well, John did.
Yeah, and it's not a feminine website. It's a very popular, highly trafficked website. You'll see their use of that 10% cursive font in certain locations to get an idea. And there's also Chrome tools for fonts. I mistakenly once called it "What the Font," but it's actually called "What Font." It should be called "What the Font." It's more memorable, but instead they call it "What Font." So you could do a Google search for either of those, and you can start experimenting with fonts. There's another great website that will pair Google fonts for you. It's called Font Pair. I love that site. You can scan through and see fonts paired up, and use some of those guidelines. But it all goes back to branding, right? If you want to. Unfortunately, good branding takes a lot of the work that we don't want to do, like that methodical thought process and really figuring things out. And it's so much easier just to get going than to sit there and really think it out. And I'm guilty of this myself.
Well, it's kind of where Amanda thinks, has got the experience and thinks it out. You tend to go just by the seat of your pants, don't you? And
I do.
But you've got a lot of experience, and I've got a fair bit, but I wouldn't have that methodical approach as Amanda. The reason, before I go back to Amanda, one of the reasons why I wanted this topic is that I think it's linked to page builders, really, because I think a lot of people, and it was a bit linked to one of your comments, Adam, is like, you can tell with Divi, and they haven't bothered. But I think with the page build, a lot of this was either good, indifferent, or bad, came from the theme developer, and depending on how much of a graphical background they came from or how much work they put into it. With the page builders, you kind of opened up for people to have as many fonts as they like as they develop in it, and you do see some horrendous examples. So, Amanda, I think what people don't realise, font spacing and the font, especially when it comes to copy, is rather important, isn't it?
Right. That's what I was going to say, is that I think, of course, your choice of exactly what fonts you want is important, but I think to really, get a kind of a polished or a finished looking site is you need to pay a whole lot of attention to things like, the line spacing between the lines, like how much space do you have between each line of copy. And also what I see a lot is there's not a lot of attention to how many characters you get on a line. For example, if you have a very wide space that you're designing for, your font size needs to be bigger. If it's really short, your font size needs to be smaller. And of course, on the web, this is really complicated because you keep changing sizes. So you kind of have to adjust your type size a little bit for different windows. I just wanted to mention there's this website that I really like called typewolf.com, because he's got all kinds of samples of what people have done on different websites, which is really helpful for getting an idea and getting different ideas of how to deal with type on the web.
Yeah, and the other thing you got to be a little bit of advice, see if Amanda agrees with this, and Adam, is that Google Fonts are great and it's a great service, but other people, custom fonts, commercial custom fonts, and the license, you can get into some real, just like images, just going on the internet and copying a Getty image. And just plonking it on the site and wait for a Getty letter to arrive 2 weeks later. later. It's the same thing with fonts. Actually, fonts are they are covered.
Yes, just because, this font came with your Photoshop installation doesn't mean you have a license to use it on the web. And so, Adobe bought, what's that font serving service? Typekit a while ago. And so, it's, you have to understand
and ruined it.
Well, I don't know about ruined it. I mean, but, it's like, if you want a font that is not available as a free font with a appropriate license, you will have to pay not just for the print version that you're using on your business cards and your brochures, but again for the web version to use on your website. And maybe it's only made available through X or Y service that you have to hook it in through. And this is kind of why I encourage designers that I'm working with, if it's a new client project and they're just developing their identity system, you will make everybody's life easier if you start with a font that's going to be available on the web. And sometimes you won't. And part of the reason that websites of some large companies look so nice and distinctive is that they're happy to pay for those exclusive commercial fonts in order to distinguish themselves. You just need to understand that it is going to cost you money, and it's going to cost you, ongoing licensing money to use certain fonts.
I think it's a great point. What's your feelings around that, Amanda, and how do you deal with that, what we've just said?
Well, I mean, I have a Adobe Creative Cloud, whatever they call it, a license, so I have access to Typekit fonts, and I use those quite a lot. It does mean that for many of my clients, if they stop being my clients, it could end up being an issue for them, and I haven't really figured out how to deal with that, or
there is no way.
I want to. Yeah. So.
Well, right. But the Google to the rescue. They do have a lot of fonts, but it's really linked to also what Sally says, because I've found with clients where they've pointed out, we want this. They show you certain websites and they say we want this certain look, and that they've spent a lot of money on commercial font and spent a lot of time, and you're dealing with a client that will not in any shape or form pay for that. And you go to Google and you can get a similarity normally, but it won't be quite the same. And if they won't know why, but when you show them the mock-ups, they say it doesn't quite look right. And that could be one of the factors. I found that through experience. I think we've had a great round table. I'm going to wrap it up now. I've got a load of things I've got to do this morning. The list has added as the morning has progressed. I'm going to let Sally sorry folks, I've got a bit of cough there. I'm going to let Sally, how can we find out more about you, Sally, and what you're up to? And tell us a little bit about the couple of posts that you've done.
Sure. Well, you can find me at WPFangirl.com, where I am at Sally Getch on Twitter. And if you can spell my name, you can find me. There's only one of me in Google. But so it's actually sort of 2.5 posts. The original, are you qualified to drive that website post with my extended analogy about, ownership and responsibility and the similarities of learning to drive and learning to use a website, and a revised, somewhat shorter version I put on LinkedIn. And then the most recent one, which posted this morning, is about, questions you need to ask yourself before you start talking to development teams or design agencies, things that you need to know about your own business before you're going to be in a position to have a productive conversation with somebody who is going to build you a website.
That's great. How can people find more about you, Adam?
I have a YouTube channel. It's pretty huge. I'd love to see you there. Just visit youtube.com/WPCrafter. And there's over 250 videos there waiting for you to learn. And if you leave a comment, I'll actually respond to it.
He does, and it's a great YouTube channel. I actually watch a lot of the videos myself because I don't know how you do it, Adam, but you get stuff that I don't even know about. So, services and tips and plugins. It's a great resource, folks. My beloved co-host, how can people find more about you, Kim?
You can find me on Twitter at Kim Shivler, or you can find me on the web at kimshivler.com. And if you happen to be in Vegas this weekend, reach out to me. I will be speaking at WordCamp Vegas, and we'll probably be doing a coffee meetup Monday morning. So reach out, and I'd love to see you if you're in town.
Yes, do that. Make a plug for the Las Vegas WordCamp. Unfortunately, I couldn't go down. But it should be great. And our great special guest that's travelled far for the show, Amanda, how can people find out more about you and what you do?
Well, first of all, thanks for inviting me on. This has been really fun. You can find me on the web at amanda-mccoy-design.com.
Oh, that's great. Any Twitter, Facebook, social media?
You know, I do have a Twitter account, but I'm not really that active on Twitter at the moment. You can also find me on LinkedIn.
All right, that's great. Thanks a lot, Amanda. And you can find out more about me on my Twitter feed. That's at Jonathan Denwood. You can go to the WP-Tonic Facebook page. We got a growing, nowhere near Adam's subscription level, but it is growing. And our YouTube channel, where you'll see all the interviews and the round tables with some bonus content as well when it comes to the interviews. And we'll see you next week for another round table show where we'll be talking about WordPress news stories and a theme. We'll see you next week, folks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.